A beautiful Saturday night in Bowling Green, Kentucky, as it's round 2 between Louisiana Tech and the Hilltoppers of Western Kentucky. CUSA Facebook Live is coming your way next. A look inside the EA Diddle Arena as Western Kentucky looks for a weekend sweep here over the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs on CBS Sports Network on Facebook Watch. And we thank you for joining us. I'm Danny Wall, joined by Tim Doyle. And Tim, last night a close contest, but the Hilltoppers were able to get the win. However, Louisiana Tech had one final opportunity to possibly get the victory themselves.
No, it was certainly a game that went back and forth. Louisiana Tech got off to an awful start. They made 2 of their first 14 field goals from the field. But then you look up in the second half, and they're up 6 with 9 minutes to play. But Tavion Hollingsworth, the senior leader for Western Kentucky, he had a slow game, but he had the game-winning bucket. Western Kentucky made just enough stops. And, hey, Danny, we run it all up back again tonight. This should be a good one, as there's so much parity in Conference USA.
That's the beauty of the back-to-backs and the exciting broadcast here on Facebook Watch. Talk to us live. You can join the conversation in the comments. Use the hashtag LA Tech versus WKU in your post, and post your photos and videos on Facebook and Instagram to possibly have a chance to be featured on the air. Should be an exciting matchup here tonight, and let's take a look at some of the highlights from last night's first matchup between the Hilltoppers and the Bulldogs, Tim.
Yeah, Andrew Gordon was really good off the bench. How about this? He took 6 shots. He made 6 shots, and he was primarily matched up against, you see right there, number 23 in white, Charles Bassey. And Bassey, well, this was a highlight reel type game for him. What do you want to see him? Put it on the floor? Oh, no problem. Step out for 3? Oh, that's easy. And then dunking and blocking shots, that's the name of his game. He had a monster effort, but here's the last play. Down 2, and you got to give Eric Conkle credit. He said, go for the tie. Forget that. Let's go for the win. Amari Archibald's shot goes begging. He struggled from the field in this game, Danny. Only 2 of 14, but Louisiana Tech certainly had its opportunities, and I think tonight's going to be an absolute dogfight of a game. I think Eric Conkle's squad looks around. They go, Western Kentucky's picked number 1 in Conference USA. Heck, we can beat them, and now we run it all back again tonight. And we've seen across college basketball landscape that second game, if you're the Hilltoppers, to go out there and try to win, oh, so tough.
And we're joined by our third man of the broadcast booth. Here is Gary Parrish. And Gary, you talk about Charles Bassey, had an incredible performance, 27 points, 14 boards, 4 blocks to go along with it, proving that he's not just the best player in Conference USA, but in all of college basketball.
And a legitimate NBA prospect, which is what he was always supposed to be. He was in that class of 2018 with Zion Williamson, with R.J. Barrett. He is actually the highest-rated prospect from that high school class that is still playing college basketball. And you see the numbers from last night. They were overwhelming. 24 points, 17 rebounds, 4 blocks. He has reestablished himself after injury as a likely first-round pick, and he is a monster in Conference USA.
And we'll see if we'll have a repeat performance from the junior Bassey, who's already on a tear here this season. As we look at the starting lineups for tonight's Game 2 matchup, the same starting 5 from yesterday. Davion Mcknight, the freshman getting his first collegiate start yesterday, will start yet again. And, well, a freshman on the Hilltoppers. And how about Kenneth Lofton, the freshman for Louisiana Tech? Didn't have the best game, did not score, 0 for 2 from field goal range, and 4 fouls, only played in 15 minutes. We'll see if he'll bounce back. And now you'll take a look at Eric Conkle for Louisiana Tech and his 6th season. There you see 113 wins. The 6th coach in Bulldogs history to reach 100 wins, the 3rd quickest in program history. He'll look to at least even the weekend series here for Louisiana Tech. And there you see Rick Stansberry, 5th season with the Hilltoppers. Had a tremendous year back in the 2017-18 season where the program won 27 games. Just did not get into the NCAA tournament. Looking to do that for the first time for Western Kentucky this year. And picked to finish atop the Conference USA as we are underway in the EA Diddle Arena.
Yeah, something to watch for. Western Kentucky really struggled from 3 yesterday. 2 of 17. They got to make more perimeter shots to open up that inside for Bassey and Williams.
And our first basket rolls off the front iron. That's Carson Williams off the mark. redshirt senior from Owington, Kentucky. Kobe Williams kicking out to Jacoby Pemberton. Handoff right back to Williams. He'll fire from long range. That takes a high bounce. And Tim, even Louisiana Tech struggled from long range as well. They were 5 of 22 in last night's game.
Yeah, and for them to go out and win a game on the road like this, I said last night, they need to make at least double-digit threes.
Rebound Williams. Another opportunity for the Hilltoppers. They'll reset.
It was a close game. It was a close game, Danny. I'm not sure it was the prettiest game.
It took a while for both teams to get going in the opening minutes of yesterday. And we'll see if that changes here tonight. Caleb Ledoux now over to Lofton. Lofton backing down Bassey. Goes up with the left hand is short. And that's going to be a big test for Lofton, a big challenge going up against the 6'11 Bassey. On the other end, Carson Williams gets the first basket.
Yeah, Davion Mcknight only had 4 points in 26 minutes yesterday, and we didn't see Kenny Cooper. Did not play. That was coach's decision. The redshirt senior, the Lipscomb transfer, and interested to see if he'll be out on the floor tonight.
Yeah, very unique how he started the first 11 games of the season as we have an offensive foul. And as we talked about the three-point shooting for Louisiana Tech, there you see in all of their losses, they have not shot well from deep.
Now, the two teams combined yesterday, 7 of 39 from 3, and that's going to end up being the bugaboo for Western Kentucky because this guy down low, he is a load as Bassey scores again. What a monster effort yesterday. 24 points, 17 rebounds, and 4 blocks. Danny and Gary, there was 3 straight possessions where he blocked a shot, and he is just such a difference maker on the defensive end. Gary, when you look across the college basketball landscape, where would you rank him among top centers?
Oh, I think he could play, obviously, in any league in the country. You probably start that list with Luca Garza, but Charles Bassey wouldn't be too far down on it. You know, early this season in South Dakota, Western Kentucky upset Memphis, and he was matched up against Musa Cisse, the 5-star center from Lausanne Collegiate School, who was at the time projected as a one-and-done first-round pick, and he absolutely dominated him, and I think he would do that to most bigs in any conference in this country.
Leading the Conference USA in rebounding and blocks, also atop the conference in field goal percentage. Long three, net connects. That's the first basket for the Bulldogs.
Pemberton played very well in the first half. He had 10 first-half points last night. Ended up with 12 for the game. I think Louisiana Tech, they just need kind of that swag, that mojo. And they get a lot of that out of Lofton down low, but Bassey has just negated any inside play. Andrew Gordon was really good off the bench yesterday. I'm curious to see when Eric Conkle goes to him because Lofton has really had no effect so far in either game and off to a slow start again tonight. I know it's early.
That's a great test for the freshman going up against a top center like Bassey. And there you see Lofton getting through for his first bucket tonight.
No, I actually think Kenneth Lofton's going to be one of the better players in this league. But like Gary said, you're talking about one of the best centers in all of college basketball. It's like not really a fair matchup for a freshman, but he's 6'7", he's 275, he's got good feet. You see obviously catch and finish there. Like, this is just not an ideal matchup for him. It's not an ideal matchup really for any center.
Well,
and Bassey drove it down.
What it is a reminder of, Tim, is when Memphis was in Conference USA and John Calipari would simply recruit at a higher level than anybody else in the league. So you'd look up and somebody in CUSA's got to guard Derrick Rose and somebody's got to guard Tyreek Evans. It wasn't fair. Charles Bassey is this season's version of that.
Both teams slow to start. Here in the opening minutes, that's an off-balance shot. Rebounded by Bassey. Hollingsworth's a senior, gets a screen. Bassey steps back, fires. And it's rebounded by the Bulldogs. Three-point shot from Amari Archibald. Got it. And Archibald, some three-point shots falling for the Bulldogs early on.
Yeah, and if you're Archibald, you just want to see that ball go through the rim. You know, he missed that game-winning three last night, but that's the kind of respect and confidence that Eric Conkle had in him. He was 2 of 13 and then ran a play for him that got a really good look. Ended up missing 2 of 14 from the night. I just think Louisiana Tech just needs to find some sort of offensive rhythm. They lead here early in this game, and Eric Conkle and Rick Stansberry agree on one thing. Second half of a back-to-back, more mental than physical.
Media timeout on the floor, and we talked a good bit about Charles Bassey. He is one of the players in contention, Tim, for Conference USA Player of the Year.
Well, the one thing he's really improved on, I saw him freshman year a lot, is the fluidity of his movements. Obviously, he's got long arms, he's a great athlete, but it looks smoother. As far as Davion Mcknight, I actually think he could jump in the hoop. One of the best athletes in all of college basketball. Jameer Young's only a sophomore. Charlotte, let's not forget, beat Western Kentucky 2 games ago in overtime. He's immensely talented, and then Jarrett West is such a great fit in Dan D'Antoni's system. He's really a triple-double threat every time he steps on the floor. And Tavion Hollingsworth yesterday, guys, broke the minutes record at Western Kentucky that was held by Courtney Lee. So here are my 5 picks. Gary, anybody else stand out to you in the conference not named Charles Bassey?
I think you got it picked about right here, but Kinsey is an interesting player. You know, he's a 6'5" guard from Columbus, Ohio, averaging, 22.6 rebounds, 4 assists per game. He's shooting 63% from the field. Marshall right now is actually the highest rated CUSA team at KenPom. So if the Thunder and Herd do go on to win the league title, it could be Tavion Kinsey who ends up as the CUSA Player of the Year.
Some of the early highlights here in this contest from Charles Bassey. Already 3-time Conference USA Player of the Week as well. And, Tim, really just trying to bounce back and continue what has been an incredible career from him, especially from his freshman season. His sophomore year last year got cut short, only played 10 games, had a season-ending leg surgery, and there was some concern before Conference USA play started. Missed a couple of games before Christmas before getting back into it.
Yeah, and he said post-game yesterday after posting 24 and 17, he goes, I feel healthy. And he was moving extremely well yesterday. Just his timing is just impeccable. And look at that. Like, there's no stat on that particular play, but he forced a turnover. Just because you get so anxious around him and you're always trying to think all right, is he going to go for this pump fake? I think his timing is exceptional. And then the 4 shots that he blocked, the thing that most impressed me, he kept them in bounds. And a couple of them went the other way. He didn't just swat it out of bounds. It was kind of like Bill Russell-esque. It ended up being a play for his own team.
10 to shoot. Free throw jumper swirls out by Josh Anderson. And Louisiana Tech's been on a roll lately. They missed their first 3 shots, but now they're 4 of their last 5.
You see Andrew Gordon there. He was a difference maker last night. We talked about him in the open. Took 6 shots, made all 6. I just love the fact that he gathered himself, created some space.
They recorded his first double-double on the year. Turnover. Bulldogs in transition. Williams, nice find inside. Basket counts and 1. Isaiah Crawford, the sophomore, with the bucket.
Yeah, this was difference makers yesterday. Andrew Gordon off the bench, like you said, Danny, he had double-double. And then on the flip side, Isaiah Crawford, he had 14 points all in the second half in just 21 minutes. And everybody was having a tough time getting buckets. And Crawford at one time scored 10 straight points for the Bulldogs. I think just watching them eyeball test yesterday, are they the best team in Conference USA? Western Kentucky? I do think they're the best. They're the most talented. But on the flip side, Louisiana Tech, which was picked middle of the road, they easily could have won that game and obviously have a lead here today. That just shows the balance this year of this league. There's no more bottom dwellers.
Everybody able to have moderate success in Conference USA. Louisiana Tech currently a 12-2 run. Western Kentucky finding some trouble. That shot off the mark. And Tim, you talk about the great production from Andrew Gordon along with Isaiah Crawford. It's great bench production from the Bulldogs. That three is good by Xavier Christian.
There just seems to be more of a rhythm right now, and that's what they never really established yesterday. And still, Louisiana Tech was up 6 with 9 minutes to play. This is a really solid squad, and if you don't know Eric Conkle's name, get to know it, because so far he's had 421 seasons as the head coach of Louisiana Tech, and yesterday put his team in position to win, even though they did not play their best basketball.
11-0 run for the Bulldogs as Jace Bass kicks it out. Amari Archibald just 1 point away from 1,000 career points with Louisiana Tech. Nice find inside and a one-handed jam from Gordon.
Well, this was something that they did yesterday. When Bassey went out of the game, there was only one mission: get as close to the rim as possible. Bassey's out of the game. Gordon, pretty close to that rim.
Hilltoppers having some trouble. Jordan Rawls kicks over to Williams, swinging the ball around the perimeter. And another turnover. Crawford will keep. Gets his own miss, goes back up and finishes. 20-6 Louisiana Tech. And Rick Stansberry running out on the floor to call a timeout. He wants to talk things over. Has not been a good stretch for Western Kentucky. So while we have a moment, Gary Parrish, tell us about one of the breakout stars in college basketball this season.
I don't think there's any question. If you're looking for the guy who has been the biggest surprise so far this season, it is Jalen Wilson at Kansas. He's a redshirt freshman, somebody who only played 2 minutes last season before breaking his ankle and having to take a medical redshirt. He's a borderline top 50 guy coming out of high school. And I will tell you, at CBSSports.com every preseason, we do a list of the best 101 players in the sport. Not only was Jalen Wilson not involved in the list, his name never even came up, and he entered this game today leading Kansas in points and rebounds. Now, he wasn't very good against Oklahoma this afternoon, got 9 points, 11 rebounds, had a bunch of turnovers, but still, to be totally off the radar in the preseason and end up being the best player at Kansas in January, that is not a normal thing.
Definitely came back with a vengeance after only playing 2 minutes last year. And Tim, it's been all Louisiana Tech so far in the first half. It's a 20-2 run in the last few minutes. Everybody getting it done.
You know, Danny, this is what I've come to expect now in college basketball. Oh, Western Kentucky won yesterday? Oh, we all know what that means. That means Louisiana Tech's going to go out there and win today. Gary, have you seen some of the wild, wacky scores on the second half of these back-to-backs? One that stands out to me, and I want an example from you, is Army went up to Colgate, and I think they lost by 1,000. And then the next night, Army beat Colgate. Have you seen any ones on these back-to-backs that stand out to you?
They're happening pretty often. I don't know that one stands out specifically, but I will say I think you've touched on something important here. When comparable teams have to play each other on back-to-back days without a normal crowd, the team that won can have a lack of incentive to get going early. Now, if it were Western Kentucky against, I don't know, Florida Atlantic, I would think that they'd sweep that two-game schedule, no problem. But when you get comparable teams, the team that lost game one seems to have an edge in game two so far this season. We've seen it over and over again.
It's so unique how these back-to-back games have been so far in conference play. It's almost like you got to be focused on game one, but if you win game one, you got to go into game two with some extra focus if you want to get the sweep. The foul was called. Taking a look here. And Jace Bass got caught in the face with an elbow by Davion Mcknight. So they're going to see if the possible flagrant foul. Officials for tonight's game: Danny Chance, Ray Natilli, and Rob Foster. Here's another look from a different angle.
Yeah, I thought that first angle was clear. That let it along. Gary, I think that's a flagrant foul. When you extend your elbows above and you connect with your defender's face, I think this is a no-brainer for the officials. Right
this
here.
should be pretty easy. They are officials under instruction to be very careful with any contact to the head, and that was obviously contact to the head.
But then again, we're not Gene's territory, and if you were watching the Buffalo playoff game between the Colts, whoever caught that ball in the Colts, he tried to get up again and fumbled, and Gene Steratore said, that's a fumble, and they came back and they went, nah, no fumble. And I was like, wait, Gene said it, we all saw it. Oh, no, don't fumble? Okay, cool. I mean, Bills still ended up winning the game. They survived the Phillip Rivers Hail Mary. But I thought that was pretty clear and conclusive. Obviously, so did I. I thought the same thing here, and so did Gary, but the referees had a different viewpoint.
Under 11 to play here in the first half. Western Kentucky cold. Only made one of their last 8 shots. The scoring drought going almost 5 minutes. And a foul. So Jordan Rawls, the sophomore, will pick up a foul. That's the second team foul for Western Kentucky. Archibald to Crawford. Ten to shoot. Over in the corner. Crawford drives in, gets over 2 defenders, can't finish. Offensive rebound by Lofton. We're going to call it off. It's going to be a foul. Offensive foul on the freshman.
Yeah, they're going to get Lofton here going over the back, and I just love Isaiah Crawford's game. There's so much of a patience to him, and this is no disrespect to Isaiah Crawford, but he's got the rec specs on. He's never out of control. Like, everything is slow motion for him. He may be the same player now that he is 20 years from now, playing at the YMCA with like guys that are dentists and chiropractors. Like, his game stands the test of time.
It's got to be the specs for sure, as 3 ball off the mark by Kevin Osaway. Western Kentucky just can't get it going at this moment. Pull up jumper, good by Caleb Ledoux.
Ledoux is, in my eyes, their best offensive weapon. Just as far as here's the ball, go make a play. He had 14 yesterday, 3 of 6 from 3, another turnover for Western Kentucky.
On the fast break, that one rolls off the left side by Christian, but how about Crawford with the offensive rebound? Pull up 3, got it from Amari Archibald. He now has over 1,000 career points, and Rick Stansberry calls another timeout. The struggles continue for Western Kentucky, and they want to talk things over. So Friday at 5 Eastern, join us on CBS Sports Network for another Conference USA showdown as these Western Kentucky Hilltoppers welcome in the Marshall Thundering Herd, only on the 24-hour home of CBS Sports. And Tim, we looked at the Players of the Year in Conference USA. That's going to be a big one. Bassey and Hollingsworth versus Kinsey and Jared West.
Yeah, and contrasting styles, too. You got Dan D'Antoni, obviously the brother of Mike D'Antoni. He wants to play fast. He wants to score 100 if he can. And on the flip side, Western Kentucky, they want to play through that man right there, Charles Bassey, and play a little bit more of a controlled half-court game. But, Gary, this is becoming pretty evident what the problem is for Western Kentucky. You have Bassey and you have a strong inside presence, but the perimeter presence, this could be their bugaboo all season long.
Yeah, they're sitting here. We're more than 10 minutes into this game, and they have not made a three-pointer, and The problem, big picture, is that it's not that surprising given that they're a terrible three-point shooting team. They shoot 30%, Western Kentucky does, from the perimeter on the season. That ranks 271st in the country. And so to your initial point, Tim, how do you come back from this kind of deficit when you don't make perimeter jumpers consistently and you don't like moving the tempo in a fast-forward direction?
Yeah, I think one thing that I would do if I was Rick Stansberry, and this may just be elementary, is right there. I think you got to play Luke Frampton, number 14 in dark jersey. He made 100 threes as a freshman at Davidson, and I think you just have to have him on the floor at all times. See, the conundrum right now that Rick Stansberry is going through is Carson Williams had a great year last year, averaged 15 points a game, and with no Charles Bassey, he primarily played an undersized 5. Well, now you're trying to play Carson Williams and Charles Bassey together, and frankly, they're just in each other's way. So, great fit last year, Carson Williams. He was pretty good last night, 10 points, 9 rebounds, but when they're on the floor together, it's like, ugh, everybody's in each other's way. So that's why you add in a guy like Frampton. If he gets more minutes, at least he keeps the defense honest. And over his last 6 games, he shot over 60% from 3. So I just think you got to change up the lineup a little bit more, because you're watching the first 10-plus minutes. It's just a lot of standing around on offense.
And to go off on that, Tim, that's what the non-conference schedule is for, to kind of figure out those rotations before you go in the conference play. But even that's kind of been difficult for Western Kentucky, because they put a lot of tough opponents in non-conference play as well. And there you see 3-point shots from Louisiana Tech, already 5 of 6, tying their total all game last night.
And one thing I noticed watching Western Kentucky, they were kind of beaten up on West Virginia, and then they went into a drought, and that's when the Mountaineers drew away. How did they lose to Charlotte? They don't score a field goal the last 5.5 minutes of regulation. There's another bucket there from Louisiana Tech. Like, they go through these periods where they have a tough time scoring. Now you're down 19, and you're just like, well, how are you going to be able to come back from this? You don't have that kind of explosive button to get buckets in bunches.
So Western Kentucky starting to find some rhythm, got their first points in over 6 minutes. That 3 ball is short, rebounded by Davion Mcknight. 20 seconds back on the clock for the Hilltoppers. 3 at the corner, takes a high bounce. And they're trying to get some good looks, and here you see once again Amari Archibald, just what force, able to drive in and finish.
Yeah, almost poetic justice. That was similar to the bucket that Tavion Hollingsworth made yesterday that proved to be the game winner. It was an excellent play drawn up by Rick Stansberry to get his senior leader driving to his strong hand. But you could just see that Louisiana Tech's playing with a confidence on the offensive end, moving the basketball, outworking, out-hustling Western Kentucky.
So Gordon scores inside. 21-point lead for the Bulldogs. And the Hilltoppers got free throws knocked down, but they haven't actually hit a field goal in over 7 minutes. Here's Luke Frampton. His 3 may have gotten deflected a bit, and Bassey is there down low with the putback.
You can tell that Frampton, his light is like fluorescent green, that when he's open, he's got to let it fly, but it's almost like he's got to keep the defense honest. Yeah, this is where I'd expect a guy like Tavion Hollingsworth to kind of step up and try to get this to single digits by being selfish, being aggressive.
Gordon gets fouled down low. We'll have free throws after the media timeout. And for the Bulldogs, Kenneth Lofton has been one of the premier freshmen so far for Conference USA. And Gary, there you see a list of the notable freshmen this season.
Yeah, Lofton has been really interesting, averaging 10 points, shooting above 54% from the field. He is among the reasons that Louisiana Tech is, and you guys touched on it earlier with Eric Conkle, like this is a rock-solid program. He hasn't had that breakthrough season yet at La Tech, but it seems to be on tap for the former Jim Larinaga assistant.
Yeah, I think that's well said. Like, it's almost like they're primed right now for this breakthrough. And you see Kenneth Lofton there, 6'7", 275 pounds. Danny, his nickname is Junior. Now, he had a massive growth spurt. He's a perfect example of everybody has friends like this. Oh, if I could just grow 5 more inches, I would have been a better athlete. Well, that's actually what happened to Kenneth Lofton. He was just like a 6-foot guard, and then he sprouted, but kept that same footwork and that guard mentality. This, like I said, this is a tough matchup going up against Charles Bassey, but there are too many other Charles Basseys in Conference USA, and he's going to be an absolute dominant force in Conference USA going forward for the rest of this season and the rest of his career.
And switching over to Western Kentucky now, you talked about Luke Frampton having to really get things going from 3 to give the Hilltoppers a bit of an advantage.
Well, he's a Davidson transfer, and at Davidson, he led the Atlantic 10 in threes made, also threes per game, almost 3 a game, and got off to a little bit of a slow start shooting the basketball. And then he's been white hot as of late. Last 6 games coming into this series, he was shooting over 60%. But now when he steps on the floor, everybody's going to be hovering him. And I'm actually okay with that because that creates some space on the floor. If you watch how Louisiana Tech is like packing everything in, it's so hard to create driving lanes. I get Rick Stansberry has that conundrum. Carson Williams was really good last year, but now that you have Bassey back, you have to have the right pieces around him. And Gary, I just wonder margin of error. You should take a look at the Facebook watch. Please join in. Ask Gary, myself, Danny, any questions you want. Use the hashtag LawTech versus WKU. Get some questions later about mascots that are out there. But Gary, what do you think wiggle room is going to be for a team like Western Kentucky, even though they have some quality wins over the course of a Conference USA schedule? How many losses can they have, though?
Yeah, I think they're bordering on too many already. I mean, the truth is there is almost no wiggle room outside of the traditional power structure in men's college basketball these days. So if you're Western Kentucky, got off to a really nice start in that tournament in South Dakota, but I would imagine that you're going to look up in March and they're going to enter the Conference USA tournament and they're going to need to win it to get into the NCAA tournament. That's just the reality of operating outside of the power structure.
Seeing great play from Andrew Gordon, Louisiana Tech. First half, last night they had 28 points, already with 30. Here's still 6:43 to play, and that just kind of goes back to what we're talking about, Tim, with the turnaround, going from night 1 to night 2 in conference play.
Yeah, and I think Louisiana Tech, that was their first time they played a game, Danny, where they left the state of Louisiana. So, I don't care what you say, like, it just feels different. You're going up against the preseason favorite, and they did not play well. And that's why we talked before the show. I thought they had a really strong chance of performing at a high level, and they have in this game.
Nice finish inside for Louisiana Tech. Back up to a 20-point lead here in the first half. And for the Bulldogs, like you said, going up against the preseason favorites, you don't really know what to expect, especially now that Charles Bassey is back in the rotation. Didn't really play any conference games at all last year. So now they know what to expect, know what they need to do, and they've executed very well so far in the first. Corner 3 from Tavion Hollingsworth. No luck there. Offensive rebound. The putback no good, but Bassey's there to win it in.
Tim, I wanted to circle back to what you were highlighting a moment ago about wiggle room for Western Kentucky. They've already got one quad 3 loss on the resume. Unless they make a massive comeback here, this would be a second quad 3 loss. And when you combine that with the fact that they are 85th in the NCAA's net rankings today, that is not the type of computer number that normally has you in the conversation for an at-large bid. So is it still possible? Sure. But if they lose this one, they will not be able to lose too many more and still be in at-large contention.
No, everything you're saying is spot on. And Rick Stansberry was mentioning to us about the net because he has tried to say, I'm scheduling whoever I have to schedule. We beat Northern Iowa when they had A.J. Green and they were healthy. We beat Alabama. We beat Memphis. We've gone out there and played Rhode Island. We've tried to play like real teams that we thought that could be impact teams in their respective conferences. We take a look at the Facebook poll, Danny. Who you got tonight? Western Kentucky's getting a lot of love, Danny. Not delivering so far.
Yeah, kind of going off of what happened in night 1, and 79% of the fans that voted currently unhappy with the results so far. See if the Hilltoppers can pull things through here. Offensive rebound and put back by Josh Anderson, the senior.
Yesterday, when we spoke to Eric Conkle at halftime, his team had not played well. They went 4 for their first 17 from the field, and I flat out asked him, I said, did you keep looking up at the scoreboard being like, man, we're still in this game? He goes, absolutely. And, you know, they gave themselves a chance to win. They went for the win down 2. They didn't come up with it. But if you're Rick Stansberry right now, you got to be thinking, if we could get this to 9 or 10 by halftime, it gives us a chance.
Well, they have under 4 minutes to try and make that happen. Rebound by Hollingsworth. He'll keep it himself, but a turnover, a foul called, and that'll take us to a immediate timeout. And going to Louisiana Tech, of course, a lot of legends have made their way through the program, one of them being Karl Malone. And Tim, speaking with Aaron Conkle, he's able to still have a good relationship with Malone in the program.
Yeah, he says that the mailman, as he was affectionately known at the highest level, still pops around practice. He owned businesses in the area. And I had to ask him, all right? And this was no insult to Eric Conkle, but I said, if you're walking down the street, right, Gary, and you're on one side and Karl Malone's on the other, will Karl Malone know who you are? And he stormed up right away. He got a picture. He goes, this is me and Karl. Karl knows who I am. Because we all have friends that go, oh, I know who Matt Damon is. And you're like, yeah. Especially when you're sitting around having a few pints. Everybody knows everybody. So I had to ask him that question. Karl Malone knows him. Do you have anybody famous that people would be surprised, Gary, who knows you, maybe via text message, that would maybe jump off?
Well, I mean, in sports, it would make sense, given that this is my career, so you meet famous people within the industry. But I had a mutual friend with Adam Duritz, the frontman of Counting Crows, and I met him, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, and we have somewhat kept in touch, which is super cool for somebody my age who was in high school listening to August and everything after on repeat. So I think maybe people would be surprised that I am not necessarily friends with, but friendly with Adam Duritz from Counting Crows.
No, that's an amazing one. For me, it's Brady Quinn. Every time I see Brady Quinn, I'm like, hey, buddy, I used to root for you when you played at Notre Dame. Right. Danny, anybody you can stand out that you say, I actually know that guy and he actually or she knows me?
Well, I'm not actually sure if they know me, but you talk about the playoff game.
That's the whole point. No, that's the whole point. That's what. No. They have to know you. That's the whole bit here. They obviously you know them. They have to know you.
You might have to ask Tyler Bass from Georgia Southern, played the Buffalo Bills, and also Younghoe Koo, currently a kicker for the Atlanta Falcons, a Pro Bowl nominee.
Well, hey, Tim, the story you tell about Eric Conkle, it's interesting because that is a priority for college basketball coaches now, particularly when they get new jobs and legends are associated with the program. For instance, Steve Forbes, the former East Tennessee State coach, gets the Wake Forest job after last season. Who do you think's the first person he wanted to get on the phone with? Tim Duncan, Chris Paul.
Yep.
Now he has relationships with those guys because in recruiting, as you two know, that is a major advantage if you've got them in your back pocket.
Well, one story that always stands out to me is guys that are thinking about going to North Carolina and maybe, just maybe, a special person, maybe a text message. I'm not going to name names, but he wore number 23, he played for the Bulls. That goes a very long way if there's some sort of communication saying you should go to North Carolina.
I think the biggest one has been Memphis and Michigan over the last couple of seasons. What Penny Hardaway and also Juwan Howard, what they've been able to do to the programs. Alley-oop deflected, under 3 minutes left to play. Western Kentucky starting to creep back in. Basket is good by Jordan Rawls, and now they're within 11 points. And Tim, you just talked about it. If they can get within about 9 or 10 points, only down by 11 now, they seem within reach. They can really get things going for themselves.
You know, and I think that this kind of proves the mental aspect. Just watching this game, you could tell who was playing harder the first 16 minutes of the game. It was Louisiana Tech. They also lost. And now you've seen kind of Western Kentucky be like, oh, man, we're getting killed in this game. We got to turn it up a little bit. And that's the challenge of the back-to-backs. So I just wonder, because this was a question that was proposed to me, and people forget, like, a lot of schools aren't in session, you're doing remote learning. But Gary, do you think this could become a new norm where you're cutting down on travel and you're playing these back-to-backs? It could be really cost-effective going forward.
I think this pandemic has led a lot of us into behaviors that will become normal behaviors, and I think scheduling in college basketball is among them. Universities' athletic departments are cash-strapped right now, so they're looking for ways to cut down on flights, and playing a team multiple times in one trip is one way to do it. And the other way, and I think you're going to see this a lot with non-league scheduling, people are going to start scheduling more regionally than they do nationally so that you can get bus rides instead of flights.
Yeah, and I love that. I think Philadelphia gets it right when they play the Big Five. I'm sure Western Kentucky, they played Louisville this year, but they want a chance at everybody. They want a chance at Kentucky. They want to see everybody in this great state. Going to school at Northwestern, I always felt like we should play DePaul, Loyola every year in Chicago.
Same thing in the state of Georgia, where Georgia Southern can play Georgia, Mercer can play Georgia Tech, Georgia State. You've seen a couple of those games earlier here when the season began. It's just a great way to have everyone involved regionally before you get into conference play.
And you mentioned Memphis earlier. I can tell you that Penny Hardaway is trying to schedule series with Ole Miss, with Arkansas, with Mississippi State. He's got one scheduled with St. Louis. A whole bunch of trips against respectable, if not high-end basketball programs that are all within 3, 4, 5-hour drives.
Lofton powers his way inside for two. Under 2 minutes left to play before the half. And an offensive foul. Lofton getting it done on both ends.
Yeah, and this is Kenneth Lofton with no Charles Bassey on the floor. Like, if you're a coach in Conference USA, this guy's going to be a problem because at 6'7", he's got outstanding feet. And watch the patience here. He's got about 2 inches on Carson Williams. Yeah, he's not able to do that with Bassey because Bassey has that length. And then on the flip side, steps into the charge. I actually think he could be one of the best players in this league as soon as next year. But as far as impact, the impact has already started.
Just imagine, just a freshman now. Incredible to see how he'll develop. Basket is good down low from Gordon. And, Gordon, a senior, 6'10", 260, kind of able to give Lofton some guidance here on the Bulldogs. Pass deflected by Gordon. So final minute. Williams going to slow things down for the Bulldogs. Nice find inside. And off the glass, Jacoby Pemberton. So Louisiana Tech increasing their lead back up to 17 points. Shot and game clock separated by about 11 seconds. Hollingsworth steps back to Anderson. 7 to shoot. Rawls drives the baseline, kicks out to Hollingsworth for 3. Got it. An important three-pointer for the Hilltoppers. 3 seconds to play. Williams leans in. That won't go in, but that'll end the first half. Louisiana Tech a 38-24 lead at the half. Just a great first half for them.
Yeah, and you nailed it right on the head. This was an enormous shot for Western Kentucky. Struggled yesterday from 3, only 2 of 17, but at least this gives them a little bit of a momentum. But Rick Stansberry, I mean, that is a beautiful head of hair. He's obviously combing through it, looking for the answers. Right now, Louisiana Tech has had all the answers. They're up 14, Danny.
And three-pointers have been the real story of the first half for Louisiana Tech, as we're with Louisiana Tech head coach Eric Conkle. Coach, what was the message to the team as far as three-pointers here in the first half?
Well, last night I thought we got some really good looks. We just didn't knock them down. And I just reminded the guys that in the pregame that we've got good shooters, we've got good players, and we've got to do our work early, get in rhythm, hands and feet ready, and knock them down.
Well, your team was a 24-2 run. And what was the message on defense for your team?
Well, that's where it's got to start. We've got to get stops. We've got to keep them off out of their transition game. And that's going to come to us taking care of the basketball and not getting our shot blocked and igniting their break. And then, of course, they are elite at getting all of the offensive backboards, and that's going to be the major key for us in the second half.
Now, your team played harder than Western Kentucky in the first half. How are you going to have them play as hard in the second half? What's the message going to be?
Well, the message always is the score is 0-0. We got to take it one possession at a time. We got to get back and execute our game plan and just continue to take a step forward in everything that we're trying to do.
Well, Coach, thank you. Best of luck in the second half for your team. And we'll take a quick commercial break. We'll have first half stats and more when we come back. You're watching CBS Sports Network on Facebook Watch.
When you were younger, what dreams did your future hold? Going to space?
9:34 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time.
Saving lives? Sharing knowledge? Launching a business? Creating timeless art? No matter your dreams, you can chase them here. You belong at Louisiana Tech.
I have a voice.
You have a voice.
We have a voice.
Our voices can be heard
Outside of sports.
As student athletes,
we have a platform.
Now more than ever.
It's important that we listen, learn, and lead.
And raise our voices for change.
We can all do more.
Now is the time
to make a difference.
This is our chance.
This is our chance to make a better tomorrow.
Together,
we will continue the conversation.
We have a voice.
14-point lead for Louisiana Tech at the half over Western Kentucky here on CBS Sports Network on Facebook Watch. Danny Wall, Tim Doyle, and Gary Parrish. A unique college basketball season this year, and Gary, it just keeps getting more and more unique as we found out a few days ago that this year's 2020-2021 NCAA basketball tournament, all the games will be played in Indianapolis over various sites across the city.
Yeah, it wasn't a surprise that they made it official, but it is now official, and obviously it'll be done in a way that we've never done this before, but we are living in a time unlike most of us have ever lived in before. It's the most reasonable way to try to give the sport the best opportunity to get through the NCAA tournament smoothly, because everybody's going to travel there either late Sunday night or early on Monday after Selection Sunday, and then once you're there, you are there until you lose. And so it cuts down tremendously on the travel, which cuts down on the risk. I can't promise you that it will go off without issue, but I can promise you that there's been a lot of thought put into it, and this is the best approach to try to get through it without issue and crown a champion.
Well, it may be reminiscent for some of the players of AAU tournaments playing national tournaments down in Florida like they've done a few years ago. And Tim, what do you think about this process with all the games being played in Indianapolis?
Yeah, well, get out of your head that you're going to see the traditional, Thursday, Saturday, and Friday, Sunday. I think you could see games played on Mondays and Tuesdays, because if they're going to have a traditional Selection Sunday, and the committee has already said that they're going to play the Final Four on its original date, with all the testing that leads into it, well, that means we're going to have games kind of all over the place, which is awesome, by the way. We could have games in the morning. Like, things are not great in the Doyle household right now. Like, I need something to watch, for crying out loud. So this is outstanding that we're going to have college basketball, and I love the fact that everyone seems to be pushing forward. Yes, games are canceled left and right across every conference in the country, but everything seems to keep moving in the right direction, which is such a positive sign for the sport. So I love the state of Indiana. I think it's a great basketball state. Some of these facilities that they're going to be playing at, whether it's Hinkle or in West Lafayette or down in Bloomington, we're talking about historic, great facilities that, kids are going to look around and be like, wow, this is awesome that we're playing here. I got a chance to play in them playing in the Big Ten. So I think it's an outstanding idea. As far as the execution, I'm happy I don't have to draw up those plans.
Well, what's exciting? Just an exciting time and an exciting season so far as well, Tim.
Oh, no doubt about it. And when I look at college basketball, there's one team that everyone's gunning for. It's Gonzaga, okay? They're not going to lose. They're going to run the table. I can't see anybody actually beating them. They have multiple pros. They shoot it. They're unselfish. This is a question for Gary, and we can answer after I explain a little bit more. But can Kentucky bounce back? Seems like they're getting a little bit more cohesion, starting to turn the corner. Maybe it's just more practices, more reps, getting the right guys on the floor. And then please, I'm on my knees right now. I'm begging. You can't see me because I'm off camera. But I'm begging, can we please get more mid-majors? Gary already put the kibosh on this, saying we're going to see no mid-majors because there's no margin for error. But Gary, what do you think first? Let's go to Kentucky. Can they rebound and still dance?
They can, yes. Do I think they will? Probably not. You know, they started the season 1-6, and simply put, no team has ever started the season 1-6 and received an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament. Now, they did get Keon Brooks back, and he will make a difference, but my instincts would tell me that Kentucky is going to get better, but probably has dug a hole a little too deep for them to end up on Selection Sunday in a good spot.
Well, they're going to have so many more quality chances to go out there and get quality wins, where the Drake Bulldogs, they have a win over Kansas State, but throughout the Valley, it's going to be them or Loyola kind of going up against one another. San Diego State, they had that crazy loss against Colorado State, and I think St. Louis eyeball test is a tournament team. They're physical, the scoring is a little bit better, they're balanced, but I wouldn't bet on any one of those teams making the tournament. Is there a sure bet there when you look at that, Gary? One of these teams up on the screen?
Usually, I think St. Louis and San Diego State both have real shots at at-large bids. Drake is an incredible story sitting here at 13-0 because they were not supposed to be this good, but there are still questions about how good they really are. I mean, 13-0 in January is 13-0 in January, but they have 0 quad 1 wins. They have 0 quad 2 wins. They haven't played a team in the top 150 of the net rankings yet. Now, that was supposed to change tomorrow. They were supposed to play back-to-back games against Loyola Chicago, but COVID issues have shut down the Drake program for the time being, so they will not get an opportunity to beat the Ramblers on Sunday or Monday, and we don't know at this point when we will see Drake play again.
Well, we'll take a quick commercial break and step aside. When we come back, we'll have some more news within Conference USA. Keep it locked here tight on CBS Sports Network on Facebook Watch.
WKU is home for big dreamers, for those who shape the future, who set their sights high, accept challenges, fuel their passions, for those with a desire to create a better tomorrow. You don't come here to prepare for one thing. You come here to prepare for everything. You belong on this hill, where we engage, learn, grow, and celebrate together. Climb with us at Western Kentucky University.
For 25 years, Conference USA student athletes have done things the only way that we know how, the CUSA way. In that quarter of a century, we've learned a thing or two about winning, both on and off the field. Our student athletes are more than just great athletes. They're fantastic students, and they're outstanding citizens who give back to their communities. We're committed to excellence. We are stronger together. That's the CUSA way.
Back inside EA Diddle Arena here on CBS Sports Network on Facebook Watch. A current poll out now as to who is going to be the leading scorer by the end of this game. There you see Charles Bassey leading with almost half of the votes. Caleb Ledoux with 13%, Tavion Hollingsworth 18%, and 21% for someone else. Could be Andrew Gordon, who's had a solid first half for the Bulldogs. Danny Wall, Tim Doyle, and Gary Parrish. And as we focus back on Conference USA, Tim, as you talked about hopefully having more than one team get a bid in the NCAA tournament, well, there have been a couple of teams in Conference USA who have had spectacular starts of their year.
Well, just watching these two teams, I don't think any Power 5 would want to see them on their particular side of the bracket. But there is so much depth to this conference. I've covered it the last 5 years, and there's no more, quote-unquote, bad teams. Rice used to be one of those teams, okay? And they opened up the only team that swept their opening series. Lost yesterday, but they're trending in the right directions, and they had some defections from their program. Andy Kennedy has done a great job getting UAB. Their net is actually much higher than you would even expect. Go check the numbers there. And Javon Jackson, kind of questioning what's going on as far as the points per game. Normally that's the other direction from sophomore to senior year, but he is still a dynamo that can light him up with the best of them. But both coaches said this, Rick Stansberry and Eric Conkle. There used to kind of be games in conference where you'd go, all right, these are going to be the pushover games. Not so much anymore. So the conference is getting better. I'm not sure, Gary, it's getting recognized at a national level as far as that recognition of there's a lot of teams in this conference that can play.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's fair, just that it's true. That the truth is in college basketball, if you're a league outside of the top 7, and the top 7 are basically known and labeled as the Power 5 program, the Power 5 conferences, plus the Big East and the American Athletic Conference. If you're outside of that, you need to have a great team that is nationally ranked to bring attention into the rest of your league. If you don't have that, you operate off of the national radar for most college basketball fans. And unfortunately, I think CUSA is dealing with that right now, although your point is exactly right. This is a better league, and some of that is connected to what Andy Kennedy is doing at UAB in his first season. The Blazers won again today. That just went final not too long ago. So they're now 9-1. They're ranked inside the top 100 at KenPom. Andy Kennedy gets UAB back rocking and rolling. Combined with what Rick Stansberry is doing at Western Kentucky, you can have some programs operating at a pretty high level in CUSA.
And going off of that, with UAB getting a couple of grad transfers to their programs, and Charles Bassey, Tim, has done what he has could for Western Kentucky to keep him in.
Well, he was so great on both sides of the floor yesterday with 24 points and 7 rebounds. I thought he's looked a bit tired in this game, but he's asked to do so much, and the fresher, more energetic team has been Louisiana Tech. Hats off to Andrew Gordon. He's had a monster jam, 7 points. You mentioned him, Danny, earlier in this game, and he's really gone toe-to-toe with Bassey. That play was called goaltending. I'm not so sure. And this guy's going to end up being their X-Factor, Amari Archibald, because he struggled from the field. His points are down, and if he starts playing with that swag, that confidence, he starts walking around like he could be one of the top scorers in Conference USA. Look out. The difference in this game versus yesterday, they started making some shots and they started believing. They shot 50% from 3 in the first half, only 4 of 8, but they're so athletic and they're so good down low that if they're able to make shots, now that opens up everything else. Difference in this game, Louisiana Tech played harder, and a scoring run propelled Western Kentucky to get back in this game. Still a puncher's chance, but Gene Katie told me this. The old Purdue coach, bad comb over. I could say that he came to my wedding, gave me a cash gift. But he said the first 4 minutes of the second half are always the most important time of the game. It sets the tone. Rick Stansberry is going to need his team to come out and be the more energetic squad.
And we are standing by with Rick Stansberry, head coach for Western Kentucky. Coach, what was the message to your team in the locker room at the half?
Well, it's very, very simple. It's, again, you play 40 minutes, number one. It's not a 20-minute game. If it was a 20-minute game, we'd be in bad trouble. So we're forced to probably only be down 14 points. It's a new game. Got this next half, these first 4 minutes, most important minutes this game right now. We got to win this first 4 minutes. A long game. Again, Louisiana Tech's got good ball handlers and a lot of guys shooting it. We didn't have that edge mentally at all. There was no edge out there mentally. We got to find that edge. Find that edge here.
What can you do about the outside shooting? Do you bring it up at all? Because you've clearly struggled from the outside.
No, shooter's got to shoot. Luke's got to make shots. Those guys that can make shots, shoot it. We missed a lot of easy baskets early in this game around that rim. I thought Charles settled for there's about 3 or 4 15 or 18-foot shots. They kind of got us off in bad defensive transition when you take a shot like that for him. He's not used to doing that. And again, give them some credit. They've played well. Is that good?
Thank you, Coach. A look at some of the stats from the first half, and There you see Charles Bassey, 8.7 rebounds. Amari Archibald with over 1,000 career points for the Bulldogs. And Tim, like we talked about, three-point shooting for Louisiana Tech has been the big difference for them here in this game.
Yeah, they've come out and they have been the much better team. And now you start going through their schedule, and it's like, all right, you beat Marshall. You were beating Marshall by double digits in game number 2. You give up 53 points in the second half, lose that game. Comes down to a last-second shot last night. Like now, Gary, start looking at the overall body of work of Louisiana Tech, because Marshall and Western Kentucky are picked amongst top teams in Conference USA. But when you put kind of all the games together now, you go, huh? Louisiana Tech, they may actually be the best team in Conference USA.
Yeah, they're certainly respectable. Again, and that's a credit to Eric, who's done a nice job of getting this program to a respectable level since he took over. You know, they're top 115 at KenPom, which, you know, is better than some power conference schools. And so is Louisiana Tech the best team in CUSA? I'm not sure of that. Are they going to compete for the league title? Maybe not, but they are capable of beating anybody in this league, and they've shown that in the first 20 minutes here.
We begin the second half here on CBS Sports Network on Facebook Watch. Please continue to join the conversation. And we want to remind you that you can turn off the comments at the bottom of the screen by swiping right on your mobile device. And we'll see how both teams come out here to begin the second half.
It was interesting that Rick Stansberry ripped off my Gene Katie line. Huh, Danny? Saying the first 4 minutes. Talk about two guys with two different hairstyles.
Lofton shot rolls off the front iron. Here's a three-point attempt from Hollingsworth and gets to the fall.
That's a bad sign if you're Eric Conkle. If you don't get a score here and Western Kentucky gets a score, I think you're going to see a pretty fast timeout, because like we talked about, if you can get this to single digits by halftime, you got a shot to win this game. Western Kentucky's come out guns blazing. It was really, Danny, like you said, that 3 Hollingsworth made before the half, that was a real key shot.
They ended their half making 4 out of their last 5 buckets. Now within single digits here over the Bulldogs. Another miss from Louisiana Tech. Hollingsworth drives, and he'll draw a foul.
Well, if you haven't seen Davion Hollingsworth, who are you waving to? There's a game going on. They got anybody there? That was awesome. But what he's great at is he's great at getting to the free throw line. He's already had 2 games in conference where he shot double-digit free throws, and he just does a great job of causing contact. Yesterday had that game-winning bucket on a set play and has come out, and this is what you expect your senior to do. Like, you're off to a bad start. You're not playing well. I was saying hello to his beautiful daughter there. That's amazing. You knew it had to be somebody important, right, Danny? Like,
oh, of course. And just a boost of confidence here in tonight's game after scoring just 11 points on the 4 of 14 shooting, hits both the free throws, and now it's a 7-point game. And you see the pressure here from the Hilltoppers. Kobe Williams, tough shot, lays it in.
Yeah, what an excellent job by Kobe Williams of using his body. I mean, he's only 5'11". He jumped into a guy 12 inches taller than him and created that space. Outstanding finish from the sophomore from Dallas.
You look at the future of the program for Louisiana Tech. You look at Kenneth Lofton and Kobe Williams, the 2 youngsters, surrounded by a senior-heavy team.
Isaiah Crawford's another guy who came into tonight's game the leading scorer for Louisiana Tech in conference games. You're right, Dave. They got a lot of good young talent.
Nobody home on the pass. It'll be Bulldogs basketball. And now, like you talked about it, for Louisiana Tech, if they can't get a stop and get a basket of their own, it's going to be a rough second half for them.
That's why Kobe Williams' bucket was so important. It really stopped the bleeding, and now you get a score here. You can push it to 11 or 12. You kind of took Western Kentucky's best punch to start the half.
Lofton called for traveling. We'll go back the other way. So we talked about with Kenneth Lofton being one of the top freshmen in the conference, a 3-time Conference USA Freshman of the Week. selection. Bassey knocks down the three-pointer. He came into the night's game with just 3 made threes.
Yeah, if he starts making that shot, look out. I think Rick Stansberry is going to get a warning here because he's been on the court like 6 times. He was yelling about the tipped ball that went out of bounds, and then I saw like the Tiger Woods fist pump when Bassey made that 3. But if Charles Bassey can make that shot, he's not going to have to worry about paying his mortgage for the rest of his life because he's going to be a long-time professional player.
Well, Tim, that's the question NBA executives have. Like, you know better than I. Traditional centers can get played off the court in the NBA in this era of professional basketball in this country. You have got to be able to do 2 things if you want to make $100 million, and that's guard in space as a big and be able to consistently knock down that shot and stretch that floor. There are no questions about Bassey around the rim, but if he can make that shot consistently and guard in space, that's how he becomes a first-round draft pick, and that's how he gets a second contract that is got a lot of zeros in it.
Yeah, you know, we got asked this question yesterday, and I know you know the pro game pretty well, and you had some pretty good big guys there in Memphis, and Marc Gasol and Zach Randolph for a long time. But what comparison do you see when you see Bassey?
Well, he's certainly more of a shot blocker than Zebo ever was. But Zebo was so strong and crafty around the rim. And then, of course, Marc Gasol was an incredible defensive player, still is to some degree. So, again, you look around the league right now, and there's just not a lot of traditional centers. They you know, I always thought Jahlil Okafor could have been an NBA All-Star if he was born 30 years earlier. But in this era of basketball, he has a hard time even playing, staying in the league. And so that's the thing with Bassey. He's got to be able to show that he can guard in space and make that shot. And if he can do those things, he will play professional basketball in this country for a long, long time.
Well, the one center that's kind of different from that currently in the NBA is Rudy Gobert. He got signed a massive contract not too long ago, and he's more so a rim protector down low, not really known for three-point shooting at all. So we have a whistle.
You know, when I see Bassey, I see like a combination of a Mitchell Robinson, ironically enough, someone who was supposed to go to Western Kentucky just from a defensive standpoint, and then a Clint Capella who runs the floor extremely well, could be that pick and dive and alley-oop sort of guy. But yeah, stepping out and showing that range. I mean, he did get dunked on, let's not forget. Was that Archambault who dunked on him there, Danny? Because I know we were in the middle of a comment, but if we could get our producer, Gary Nicholas, to show that dunk again, because that was sick.
I was just more amazed at the slam by Archibald, just throwing down the hammer. A statement dunk to get Louisiana Tech out of a funk for a moment. An offensive foul down low on Andrew Gordon.
And here's the dunk right here. I love everything about it. I love Archambault attacking the rim. I love Bassey trying to block his shot. Advantage Archambault there, the 6'3" senior from Florida. We talked about his struggles. He's been great in this game. 10 points, 4 or 5 from the field. And then the massive dunk. Louisiana Tech still up 6, Danny.
While we have a moment, Tim, tell us about some of the mascots here around the Conference USA, some of the best ones.
Yeah, one of the best in all of college hoops. We're talking about Big Red. This is how my body looks after a pandemic. We got Marco the Bison. He's famous in Huntington. Tech. How many people got dogs during a pandemic? Hats off to them. I'm a big Blazer fan. Love the tongue. Gotta say, I wore 00. So I'm a little biased towards the Roadrunner. I think the nose is a little bit too big if we're really going to deep dive into it. But yes, if I had to equate anybody to who looks the most like me, my body right now resembles a lot like Big Red. And that's okay. I got to start swimming, Danny. I got to start running a little bit more. I put on pandemic weight like everybody else out there.
You got to go from Big Red to Pay Dirt Pete. And we want the fans on Facebook Watch to tell us which is the best mascot in Conference USA. And another Facebook question as well. Will the Conference USA get any at-large bids? Well, Tim, we talked about this a little bit throughout this broadcast. We are hoping that there's going to be more than one at-large bid in the Conference USA.
Yeah, but Gary's all over this. You know, just that when you look at the pure numbers from a net standpoint and quad 1 wins versus quad 3 losses. I think it's going to be next to impossible. But the one thing that always stands out in my mind, Gary, is if Loyola of Chicago, if they didn't win the Missouri Valley Conference Championship that year, we would have never heard of Sister Jean. My life would have been much, much worse. Like, that Cinderella story was so amazing, and that's why I think there should be maybe allocated spots for mid-majors, because nobody wants to schedule them. It's so hard for them to get in the tournament. Do you have any answers for me?
You have to change the system. You know, like, if you want to change the system, I'll sit down with you and we can do it. But given the way the system works now, to answer the poll question, I'd be shocked if CUSA gets an at-large bid. I'll put it this way. Right now, you go to KenPom, there is no CUSA team in the top 80. Usually you got to be in the top 40 or 50 to be even considered for an at-large bid. So I am sympathetic to the struggles of a program like Western Kentucky, Louisiana Tech, or anybody else in that league, because here's the issue they run into. If people know you're in CUSA and you're going to have a good team, they won't play you. And then they'll wait all the way till Selection Sunday, and you know what they'll scream? You didn't play anybody. Well, I didn't play anybody because you won't play me. It's a chicken or an egg argument, but either way, it works slanted against CUSA and other leagues like that, and that's why depending on how this league decides to award its automatic bid with a regular season champ or a conference tournament, because I do think some leagues, and I'm not saying that about CUSA, but some leagues are going to decide not to have conference tournaments, but it'll probably be a one-bid league, and then whoever gets that bid, if it's Western Kentucky, that team is good enough to advance in the bracket, but you probably got to get your automatic bid to even get in the bracket.
The late, great Rick Majerus had a great line about scheduling. He said, I wanted to date Cindy Crawford, but she didn't want to date me. So I think I just showed my age because I know who Cindy Crawford is. So
yeah, now if you're going to make that joke, you make it about Cindy Crawford's daughter.
Fight for the basketball down low, recovered by Ledoux for the Bulldogs. Now a 6-point game here in EA Diddle Arena. Top of the key is Isaiah Crawford. Hand off to Christian. 10 to shoot. Step back jumper. In and out. And a foul is going to be called on Gordon, trying to go for the rebound.
Yeah, what you're starting to see right now at Louisiana Tech is a lot of standing around. That was not happening in the first half. The ball was moving for Conkle. There was an energy. They were winning the battle of the boards. It just feels like Western Kentucky is imposing its will right now on Louisiana Tech. I would try to get Bassey a touch here if I was Western Kentucky.
The biggest lead for Louisiana Tech was 20 when it was 32-12 with 6 minutes to go in the first half, and now down to 6. Something has to change, and like you said, they got to move the ball around some to get active.
Yeah, what was really working for them yesterday was Crawford in this high pick and roll here. 22, he does such a great job of making plays or driving. Get him involved.
Amari Archibald driving with the right hand off the high glass and in.
Tough drive there for Archibald, and this is what Eric Conkle needed. He needed his senior to step up. This guy averaged 9 as a freshman, 11 as a junior and sophomore, but this year only 7.5 points.
Bassey takes another 3, wide open and connects.
I mean, Gary, if he can make that, I know it's kind of slow right now, but it's only going to get better, and over time, there's going to be a place for him.
Yeah, and you know, listen, if you'd love for it to be a little speedier of a release, and obviously it will. He'll work on that and develop it the way all young players do. But the truth is, if I'm an NBA executive, all I want to know is, can he make the? Do you have to guard him out there? I mean, that's the thing. Do they have to guard him? And if he can make that shot, even if it's somewhat in slow motion, you got to guard him, and that accomplishes what you're trying to get accomplished.
Yeah, that was something he did not have in his bag. A great tough drive by Archambault there. And look, you can see the rotation on the ball. I've watched him work out a bunch. I've called a lot of their games. And afterwards, he would stay after practice and just, you could see it was almost becoming like a robot for him. And that's why he shoots it with rhythm right now. But if it goes in now as a 20-year-old, as he becomes 25, 28, 29, it's only going to become more effective. And that's not the staple of his game. It's just another one of the tricks in his bag.
And Tim, you mentioned I live in Memphis. The Grizzlies were playing the Cavaliers a few nights ago, and Andre Drummond, who of course made a lot of money playing basketball, but is no threat anywhere away from the basket. He caught the ball at the elbow late in the game, and they did not guard him at all. They just were 5 feet away from him and dared him to shoot it or put it on the floor. He put it on the floor and a turnover. Bassey is already showing you at least have to guard him out there, and that's a big positive.
Another made three for Western Kentucky at the 4-point game. Look at the three-point numbers for the Hilltoppers this half. They've been a perfect 3 of 3. Louisiana Tech, however, Tim, they have not made one. 0 for 6 so far in the half.
No, and they need a bucket right here to stop the bleeding.
And that won't help. Offensive foul. And that will take us to immediate timeout. We'll see if Eric Conkle can get his team together. And while we have a moment, Gary, you talk about some of the top teams in the nation. One of them is Texas. How good are they so far this year?
Good enough to win the national championship. Now, they're not the favorite like Gonzaga is the favorite, or Baylor is right there with the Zags, but certainly if we were putting a bracket together tonight, Texas would be a #1 seed, and that team really does check every box. Look at those victories. Kansas, North Carolina, West Virginia. The only loss is a single-digit loss to Villanova. They've got incredible experience, basically everybody back from last season's team that was good enough to make the NCAA tournament. They added a 5-star freshman projected lottery pick in Greg Brown, so they have NBA talent. And then they've got a coach in Shaka Smart who has been to the final weekend of the season before, of course, when he took VCU to the Final Four. So this is a Texas team that has finally provided Longhorn fans with exactly what they thought they were going to get when they hired Shaka Smart out of VCU, and that is a legitimate Big 12 contender, but also national championship contender.
Yeah, and it maybe took him a little bit longer, Danny, than everyone expected, because he had the secret sauce there at VCU and got to a Final Four, and Texas just felt like bringing him down there automatically that would flip their switch and make them a contender. But he went through kind of his bumps and bruises, his ups and downs, but now he has righted that ship. He's got a unique blend of guys that have been around the block as well as young talent, but it's got to be this year. I think he's going to see a ton of defections. He might have a completely different roster, or simply, Danny, is it the hair? Because he's grown the hair out and somehow they're winning games there.
Well, I'll tell you what, the hair of Rick Stansberry has really gotten the Hilltoppers back going with three-point shooting here in the second half.
Yeah, basically, remember your halftime speech, Coach. Whatever you told them, it was working. I asked them, do you bring it up? Because shooting can become like hitting, right? When a guy's going through a bad stretch, you don't want to be like, kind of berating him about, oh, this is what you need to do and make these adjustments. And shooting can be the same way, meaning it's more between the ears and it becomes more mental. Bassey has set a tone, and this is going to end up being their X factor, Gary. We talked about it. Can they make enough shots? Because if they can, well, that opens up driving lanes and lanes for Bassey down low.
And it's sort of circled back to a point you made earlier about Luke Frampton, who is clearly Western Kentucky's most accomplished shooter. He's a good shooter in any league for any team, and yet he only plays 22 minutes per game. Now, I'm not in any sort of position to be questioning rotations or anything like that, but I do know that when you have a shooter on the court, the other team just has to chase him around. Even if he's not making shots, he's a real threat, and you got to chase him around, and it opens up space for everybody else. Kentucky is benefiting from that right now with Dante Allen in a way that they did not have through the early part of this season. Just put the shooter on the court, and it creates driving lanes for other people. I think Luke Frampton could be that guy for Western Kentucky.
Down low, Lofton denied by Bassey. On the other end, shot was swatted away. Anderson couldn't hang on. And a foul on the floor. So under 11 minutes to play here in regulation. We got ourselves a game on our hands. Things getting more physical, and that's another thing, Tim, with the back-to-back. You have to play the team twice in a row, and if you have any, physical altercations that happen in night one, you don't forget going into night two as Bassey swats it away again, but they're going to call a foul.
Interesting. Let's talk about this block first. I actually think they called this foul because he wound up. And maybe not. I mean, Gary, is that a foul?
Charles Bassey doesn't think it is.
So many times referees anticipate, Danny, especially when a guy kind of cocks his arm back and is trying to create that massive block. That's what he did so well yesterday, was he blocked 4 shots, kept them all in bounds, and 3 of them Western Kentucky ended up recovering, and 2 of them going the other way for transition buckets. But I think the referee anticipated the foul in that spot. For Isaiah Crawford, he gets back to the free throw line where he's made a living this year all season long.
Goes 1 of 2 from the line, rebounded by Bassey. It's really been tough for the Bulldogs to get points here in the last couple of minutes. Things have picked up defensively a little bit on both sides. 10 to shoot. Bassey hands off to Hollingsworth. Hollingsworth will drive. That one off the front iron. Rebound by Williams. Crawford now. Hand off to Xavier Christian. Williams thought about shooting. Takes a few dribbles back. 4 to shoot now. Williams turns away and fades away and gets it.
Yeah, I was trying to cut you off there because no one was moving. Like, nobody was moving. There's no harder way to play basketball, and 5 guys are standing around, or 4 guys are watching 1 guy dribble. Fortunate for there, that's not once this half. That's twice, Danny, that Kobe Williams has bailed them out with a great individual effort going one-on-one.
That's what a high school coach told me. You can't just sit there. You got to be able to move on the offensive side to get your offense going.
Yeah, this is a close call once again. I've seen that call to charge, Gary.
Well, certainly these days, the officials seem more interested in calling charges than blocks on plays like that. And the truth is, it just speaks to something we were speaking about earlier. If you saw Frampton try to get into the lane there was just nowhere to go. He ran into 3 bodies.
So 15 on the shot clock for Western Kentucky. Rawls. And that's going to be a foul. Offensive foul, as they say, that Rawls pushed off there.
Yeah, this is an important stretch right here if you're Louisiana Tech, and here's why. Bassey's getting a breather. He's trying to catch a little blow here before the under 8 timeout. This is where, if I'm Louisiana Tech, I'm going right inside to Gordon, and I'm taking advantage of his size against a guy like Carson Williams. You got to try to get to the hole here with no Bassey out there.
Yeah, Gordon's done tremendous here in this series against the Hilltoppers in a traveling violation, and you're absolutely right. You got to be able to take advantage of this moment, increase the lead, get back into the double digits like you were in the first half, because when Bassey comes back in for that final stretch, it's going to be real difficult to get points down low in the paint. And not to mention what 3-point shooting has been non-existent.
Get better here in the second half as you see the 15 Western Kentucky turnovers. Look at Carson Williams here, 22. Look for him to be more aggressive with no Bassey out there. He averaged 15 points a game last year, and that's when Bassey was out with a leg injury.
Shooting foul. So we'll have free throws for the sophomore Jordan Rawls out of Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Gary, one thing that Rick Stansberry kept mentioning to us over and over again was optics. And what he meant by that was eyeball test. How much do you think the committee is going to take into account the actual eyeball test when you look at, overall teams?
They should do it more than they usually do because we don't have the same amount of data that we usually have. We didn't get a full slate of non-league games. This entire season is being played under unusual circumstances. But I will tell you, and this is not going to be anything a Western Kentucky fan wants to hear, my experience with the selection committee is that they use the eyeball test when it benefits them to use the eyeball test to justify what it is they want to do. And when they want to eliminate smaller conference schools from the equation, that's when they rely on the computers and the data, and they point to your net ranking and your Sagarin rating and your KenPom ranking and your lack of quad 1 wins. And it just, again, we've talked about this earlier, the entire system is set up against schools like Western Kentucky. You either have to be excellent without exception or get your automatic bid. There's really almost nothing in between.
So 4-point game. What a slam by Andrew Gordon down low.
Danny, it's been Gordon back-to-back possessions with no Bassey out there. They have really exploited the inside. That was a common theme in the first game in this series.
There you see 11 points off of 5 of 6 shooting. Right off of the double-double that he had last night, 14 points and 10 boards. 8 to shoot for the Hilltoppers. Here's a screen. Ball knocked away. It'll go out of bounds. Possession will stay with Western Kentucky. But overall, Tim, Andrew Gordon has just played very physical down low.
Well, you could tell he gets more aggressive when Bassey's not in the game, and I just love the way he attacks the rim. He has been basically flawless in this 2-game series. He has not missed all but 2 shots over the first 2 games. Had a double-double yesterday, and Louisiana Tech, it feels like they're keeping Western Kentucky at arm's length in this game, Danny.
We'll look at the Facebook polls. Can Western Kentucky pull off the comeback in the second half? 73% say yes, and it seems to be working very well for the Hilltoppers so far tonight in the second, knocking down a ton of threes. Gary, this season, with the NCAA granting an extra year of eligibility, there have been a lot of players that have entered the transfer portal and going to different schools.
Yeah, it's going to be a normal thing going forward. Now, the Division I Council was scheduled to vote next week on a one-time transfer rule that would allow every Division I men's basketball player to transfer once, play immediately without punishment. That vote is now going to be delayed, but still, under the assumption it'll get done in advance of the 2021-22 season, you're going to see a lot of players changing schools. And we've already seen earlier this week 2 prominent players enter the transfer portal: Caleb Mills at Houston, Oscar Shibwe at West Virginia. And where this is going to be a normal thing is you're going to see big-time players who are at mid-major or lower-end high-major schools transfer up to some of the big boys. It's not surprising that, Kentucky is involved with Caleb Mills. North Carolina is involved with Caleb Mills. So you're going to see players wanting to transfer up to take advantage of a bigger stage. And then, of course, you'll see players who are stuck out of a rotation at schools all over the country who just decide they want to go to a place where they have a better opportunity to play more minutes and be a part of something meaningful. Because I've always thought it was interesting, in the sport of college basketball, and I suppose this is true with any college sport, but if you're good enough to be a Division I athlete, you have probably never sat on the bench anywhere. And suddenly you end up in college and you're watching for the first time in your life. It's easy to understand how it becomes frustrating.
And you talk about that. I'll take this question to you, Tim. The reason why UAB has had such great success, they got 2 transfers from 2 Sun Belt teams, Michael Ertl from Louisiana Monroe and Quan Jackson from Georgia Southern, and that's why they've been off such a great start in their season.
Well, you got a new coach there in Andy Kennedy, and he's preaching, right, he needs his guys and bringing in his style of play, and that works. Matt Painter did that when he took over for Gene Cady at Purdue, and he struggled his first year, and he was able to go out there and land the top recruiting class of guys like Etuan Moore, Robbie Hummel, Juwan Johnson. And talking to those guys, Matt Painter laid the foundation by saying, we're not very good, but we can become very good if you guys come to school here. But now the interesting thing that Gary brings up is recruiting doesn't end when it's guys step on campus, as when I played it kind of ended. Now it never ends. Even when they're playing for you, if Charles Bassey decides to come back to school, Rick Stansberry better have his pitch ready on why he's going to let Bassey shoot some threes and play out on the perimeter and expand his game. So it's a completely different coaching style now, recruiting style as well.
Well, Tim, that's exactly right. You have to re-recruit your team every season. It becomes an exhausting job because, listen, I'm assuming Charles Bassey is going to be in the NBA draft, but if he made it clear he wanted to do another year of college basketball, every program in the country would be trying to lure him out of Western Kentucky. Maybe Rick can keep it with that type of relationship, but this is something that, you know, mid-major coaches especially are going to have to deal with. You will be at risk of losing your best player every single year, not just to the NBA draft, but to a Kentucky, to a North Carolina, to an Indiana, or to a similar program.
Ball tipped out of bounds. You saw Luke Frampton finally getting rhythm, hitting a three for Western Kentucky on the offensive side. The Hilltoppers have stayed close to the Bulldogs here in the last couple of minutes in this half. Still 6:05 left to play. They have a chance to potentially make it a one-possession game or even take the lead here soon. Gordon swatted away by Bassey. Another major block. Gordon with the rebound. Bodies flying everywhere. And a foul on Western Kentucky.
Now watch the timing here. I mean, excellent job by Andrew Gordon. We talked about how well he's played in this series, but my advice to offensive players when Bassey is guarding you down low, pray. Right, because like there's no other way to get a shot off. He just impeccable timing. And once again, that was a chance where he kept the ball in bounds. Team went the other way, wasn't able to score, but that's what makes his block shots even more valuable.
Yeah, Tim, you could pray or pass, and I would do probably both. But what that is evidence of is that Gordon is used to playing against the level of college basketball player where he gets that shot off. So he's shocked that ball got blocked, because 99% of the time against 99% of other players he's going to be dealing with, he gets that shot off no problem.
So we'll have free throws for Amari Archibald here. 71% free throw shooter on the season. And we'll be back with more Conference USA action here on Facebook all season long, with plenty of opportunities to catch these Western Kentucky Hilltoppers. Our next game is a week from tomorrow, Sunday, January 17th at 2 p.m. as Western Kentucky heads to West Virginia to square off against Marshall right here on Facebook Watch. As we talked about earlier, Tim, a contrast in styles, but two players on each squad that are in contention for Conference USA Player of the Year. Bassey, Hollingsworth, Kinsey, and Jared West. Should be a fun series. And Davion Mcknight gets fouled down low. Andrew Gordon didn't like the call, but nonetheless, we'll have free throws for the freshman out of Shelbyville, Kentucky.
McKnight is one of three Mr. Basketballs from the state of Kentucky that Rick Stansberry has on his roster, along with Davion Hollingsworth and Carson Williams that Northern Kentucky transferred. I really like McKnight. He's got a strong body. That was like every possession counts now, and the fact that he had the confidence to go attack the rim, get to the free throw line, he's got a massive upside. You know, every day in practice going up against a guy like Hollingsworth, you're only going to get better by accident because you're guarding one of the better players in this entire conference.
And he's an efficient free throw shooter, over 90% shooting from the charity stripe so far this season. Making his second consecutive start in his young career. Alley-oop to Jacoby Pemberton.
That was the first possession that Western Kentucky played zone, and how I would describe their zone, not good.
7-point lead for the Bulldogs. On the other end, Hollingsworth couldn't finish. Under 5 minutes left now in regulation. Louisiana Tech hangs on to a 7-point lead. Can they close it out and split the weekend series? And Lofton with a great pass, but Archibald couldn't hang on to it. Turnover. Here come the Hilltoppers. Frampton for three. Just short. He'll try again for a second time, and that one won't go either. Fight for possession. The Hilltoppers still keep it. Four to shoot. Here's a three from Hollingsworth. He gets fouled on the shot. So he will shoot three at the line.
This is what I like about Louisiana Tech is they've had a lot of unselfish play, and that's when they were playing great in the first half. We talked about guys who are moving, passing the ball, and there's been some more standing around, but I think Luke Frampton was playing man-to-man. Everybody else is playing zone. That's why I love playing zone in college, because you could blame it on somebody else. Because you're like, dude, I thought you were supposed to be there. Like, that was why I was a horrible defender. But so I liked blaming my teammates for when someone scored in my region.
So Davion Hollingsworth, an 80% free throw shooter on the year. A great opportunity to get back in it, especially considering that Western Kentucky has gone almost 3 minutes without a made field goal. And in a game like this, you may win it at the free throw line. Western Kentucky so far perfect 11 of 11. Williams, nowhere to go. Kicks out to Crawford. An offensive foul.
That was the second possession that they've gone back to zone, and this is an excellent job by Josh Anderson of acting. I don't know if that's an offensive foul. Get him an award there. I think he was the beneficiary of a friendly call on his home court. Like Gary said earlier, everybody likes to call offensive fouls this year. As we take a look at my Player of the Year candidates, and everybody has an opinion here, but I think this is Luca Garza's award to lose. Gary, can you build a case for anybody else?
I could build a case for Corey Kispert. I think I could maybe make an argument for Ayo Dosunmu. Not quite Davion Mitchell, but you're exactly right. If you could only list one person at number one right now, that person would be Luca Garza. I mean, he is averaging 27 points, 9 rebounds a game, shooting 63% nearly from the field, and he's doing it for a consensus top 5 team, a team that's got a chance to win a Big Ten title. When I talked to Luca this offseason, and when he was still trying to decide whether to come back to school or not, he said that he would listen to the advice of NBA officials, and if they told him there wasn't a spot in the league for him right now, he would come back to school, but not just to be the same version of himself he was last season, but to be even better. And that said something, considering he was probably the runner-up for National Player of the Year as a junior. To his credit, he came back a better player. He is nearly unstoppable at the collegiate level, and he is the obvious reason why Iowa's got a chance to do some things this season that program hasn't done in a long, long time.
Yeah, I love their balance. They're fun to watch. Defense is going to be their huge question mark, Iowa, for the rest of the year. I wouldn't want to draft Luca Garza or be in that position where I have to make that decision, because I love his heart. I love his determination. I'm not sure I love his feet on the defensive end and being in pick and roll opportunities. That's where I think Bassi has an edge over him at the next level. Totally different game. Dosunmu is a guy who could just flat out score the basketball. I think Illinois just scored again on Northwestern in the second half of that game when they blew the doors off the Wildcats. I think Illinois is a really fun team to watch, and they got 2 pros, and pros win when you get to the tournament.
I think big thing going off of that, throwing back to you, Gary, now players can go in, say they're going to declare for the draft, go to the workouts, and then have a chance to possibly go back to school for an extra year.
Yeah, and it should be that way. And, you know, NBA officials, best I can tell, give these young people really rock solid and honest assessments. You know, they tell them, you know, some things that maybe they've never heard before. Like Luca Garza, imagine being as awesome as he was last season and then being told you need to go back to school and do that again. And also, Tim, you're exactly right, work on your footwork. They know he will never be a plus athlete or a plus defender, but can he get good enough to play in the NBA? That's the question. I think he's got a chance because he's so good at so many other things, but guarding in space is a real obvious issue that probably limits what he'll be able to do in that league, even though he is great at so many other things.
A one-possession game with under 3.5 to play. A foul down low, and Andrew Gordon will go to the line for 2.
They've done an excellent job, Louisiana Tech, of attacking the 1-3-1 pressure. That's what Western Kentucky has gone to from a zone perspective of throwing the ball over the top. We saw the alley-oop, and that time lobbing into Gordon, getting him to the free throw line. You can't go side to side against a 1-3-1 defense. You have to go north and south, and then you have to convert at the free throw line. Another missed free throw here, Danny, and you talked about a one-possession game. We haven't gotten to that point. Louisiana Tech, our Conkle's team, they led by as many as 20.
A tale of two halves for sure. And Gordon misses the second one. Was short on that one as well. A chance for the Hilltoppers to strike.
And that free throw shooting is a problem for Louisiana Tech. You know, they only shoot 64.9% from the free throw line. That ranks 292nd in the country. That is not a statistic you want attached to you when you're in a tight game like this.
They were 9 of 16 last night. Passes tip recovered by Hollingsworth. Under 3 now. Hollingsworth through 2 defenders. Bassey tried to throw it back in with one hand. And possession will go to Louisiana Tech.
Bassey's got to do a better job there, going up and grabbing a rebound with 2 hands. And that's stuff that drives coaches crazy. I was guilty of it as a player. I think he was trying to make the highlight reel on that play. You know, you're 6'11", you're more athletic than everybody else. Grab it with 2 hands, keep the ball high, finish, and then it's a 1-point game. Louisiana Tech, last couple of possessions, not great. Missed free throws, turnover, kind of sloppy play here. You get a bucket, you can put yourself really in the driver's seat.
And off to Archibald. Stops and pops. That one off the left side. Rebound Bassey. He has his 8th double-double on the season. Davion Mcknight out to Anderson. Now Rawls, offensive foul.
See, and that's a perfect example of if that's Luke Frampton on that kick out to the corner, he's able to shoot that 3. That's not Rawls' game, right? Rawls is more of an attacker. Like, that's where having Frampton in that opportunity to shoot that 3, spaces the floor, he keeps the defense honest. I get it. I get why he doesn't play as many minutes as I would like, but they just need more guys who can make shots to open up those driving lanes Western Kentucky does.
Louisiana Tech needs a basket here. They have been scoreless for over 3 minutes now. Now under 2 to play, trying to hang on to their 3-point lead. Williams pass is tipped. Mcknight with the left hand with the 1-point game. And Eric Conkle going to call a timeout. We talk things over. It's been a slow start for them.
That's just excellent defense there by Mcknight. And then watch how he uses his body as a shield. You know, he went right into Isaiah Crawford, kind of paralyzed him by jumping towards him, and then was able to finish. This has been a slow drip of a comeback, Gary. This did not happen all at once. It's a 20-point game, and it's almost been like Andy Dufresne getting rid of how he powered through his wall, just little rock by little rock at a time, and now we got a 1-point game here.
And If you want to see more exciting games on Facebook Watch, we'll have some more starting with next Sunday, January 17th, Western Kentucky at Marshall. And then on the 29th and 30th, in the month of January, Old Dominion comes to Bowling Green. And then the Hilltoppers will head to North Texas the weekend of February 19th and the 20th. But Gary, what does Louisiana Tech need to do during this timeout when they come out if they want to hang on to this lead that's slowly been slipping away from them?
Score. You got to score, and there is no finish line in college basketball. It's not like we got to 59, so that'll be enough. They have, and Tim's exactly right, been holding on to this lead in spite of themselves. They were never able to pull away, and now Western Kentucky is in a pretty good spot. Just 88 seconds left, but if you were trying to figure out who's going to end up with more points in this game right now, you might take the home more talented team, and that's not something I would have said probably at halftime.
And Tim, Western Kentucky has not led since the beginning of the game when it was 6-5. And we have the polls of seeing who the player of the game is. Would you agree that it is Charles Bassey, and that's the guy that needs to get things going for the Hilltoppers if they want to get this win?
It's always hard for me to give player of the game to the team that's losing right now. Obviously, we've talked a lot about Bassey, but I probably would go with Archibald. He had 14 points, been ultra efficient, 5 of 7 from the field, and look for him to get the ball on this play. Top of your screen, number 3 in white. There's 2-3 zone. First possession, we've seen this by Rick Stansberry.
Approaching the final minute. 8 to shoot. Great defense down low by Bassey.
Awesome job of changing defenses. Bassey and Gordon are going at it down low. Rick Stansberry is going to take a timeout. He wants to get the shot he wants, but hats off to changing defenses. That is tough to do because we see a lot of coaches across the country. They go, this is my philosophy. We're a man-to-man team. And yeah, they were a man-to-man team for 94% of the game, but they switched it up. We saw 1-3-1 that kind of was hot and cold, and then he went 2-3 zone on that possession, and it confused me. It confused Isaiah Crawford, and now if you're Eric Conkle, Gary, it's just another thing to think about in the huddle. Like, all right, here's what we're going to do if they're in man. Here's what we're going to do if they're in zone. But also, we got to focus on defense right now because a bucket by Western Kentucky gives them the lead.
I don't know why more coaches don't do that more often. I mean, all of these young men are talented, but they are amateur basketball players. You're not going to confuse NBA players too often. It's the same reason you don't press in the NBA too often because the players are too skilled. They'll just eat you up and get layups. But at the collegiate level, these are still amateurs, and anything you can throw at them to maybe confuse them, to maybe make them think about something else, that usually ends up being an advantage in your favor.
I just wonder, Danny, if Eric Conkle's thinking that, right? You got a Western Kentucky team that's obviously made more threes in the second half because they couldn't make anything in the first half. That's something he looks at as far as going to 2-3 zone here. You force Western Kentucky to shoot a perimeter shot. That's not the strength of their game. I wonder if that thought creeps in his mind, like instead of saying Newman at a Seinfeld, he was like Stansberry because that was such a great play on that play.
Well, 1 minute exactly remaining. Western Kentucky with the ball. A 1-point game, trying to get the lead and get the weekend sweep over the Bulldogs. 8 to shoot now. Hollingsworth handed off. 3 for the lead. Short. Rebound and putback is off the left iron by Mcknight and rebounded by the Bulldogs.
Well, no need to foul, and that's a shot that Mcknight, especially with his offhand, left hand there rather, is able to finish. Eric Conkle's going to take a timeout, but man, that's a shot that Mcknight probably makes 98 out of 100 times. I don't think he was ready for that ball. I think he rushed it a little bit. Now, 10-second differential, no need to foul. But Eric Conkle's got to be thinking back to what we talked about. What defense is he going to see here? Are they going to see zone? How are we going to execute? If they see zone, I think Isaiah Crawford's got to be ready to shoot that ball right around that free throw line because that seemed to be open against the zone. And then if you're going man, it's probably going to be Archambault. But check out this play by Davion Mcknight. Gary, this is one of the times you're out on a basketball court. There's an air ball. And watch him, he sneaks behind the defense. This is actually a rather easy shot, and I think he just rushed it.
He just missed it. And the other interesting thing about that possession, Charles Bassey didn't touch it, and the jump shot went up when he was out on the perimeter. You don't want to miss a shot ever, but if you do, you want to have that guy near the rim to be able to grab it, because he doesn't try to flip it back in. He dunks it back in, and now you're still, if you're Western Kentucky, trailing. Interesting, Louisiana Tech could have maybe gone 2 for 1 there. It would have been tight. They didn't do it, so now Western Kentucky, no matter what happens here, should have a shot to maybe send it to overtime if they need that.
Well, like you said, Tim, no need to foul. Shot and game clock separated by 11 seconds, so there is time for the Hilltoppers. If they can force a missed shot here from the Bulldogs. Williams hands it off to Crawford. Archibald drives. That one tipped in. And I'm not sure if Bassey may have gotten a piece of it, trying to go for the rebound and result in points for the Bulldogs.
This is what, if you're at Conkle, you got Archibald driving right. And this is kind of what he spoke to us about when we talked to him on the call. Just getting a shot up on the rim, right, Danny? Remember he talked about just like not getting your shot blocked and not letting them go out in transition. Nobody blocked out Pemberton. He's able to have the tip in, the 6'5" redshirt senior from Dallas is able to sneak behind the defense, and that always happens at the end of the game. And I was a player, I did the same thing. It drives coaches crazy. When a shot goes up, Angels start singing in the background. You just start watching the ball and you forget to box out. No one boxed out Pemberton, and now you don't need 3 here, but you got to go really fast. So it has to be really fast. If it starts getting 6-5 seconds, then you're going to have to shoot a 3.
Yeah, Pemberton was able to sneak in with the left hand to tip it back in, but being down by 3, and if you, in case you have to go for a 3 to tie, if you're Western Kentucky and Rick Stansberry, Tim, do you bring in Luke Frampton to give yourself a chance?
Yeah, I think Luke Frampton will be on the court here. Something I saw was when you brought Bassey high, Louisiana Tech was going with the ball dribbler there. Now, I don't know if they'll switch on this play, but I would feel very comfortable throwing it back to Bassey. He's already made a couple threes in this game, and let him shoot that top of the key 3. That appeared open to me. Obviously, the scouting report for Frampton is don't leave him, and especially in a 3-point game, but I would bring Bassey high, run a high ball screen here, and if he's open, you let your All-American shoot it.
Well, Bassey has knocked down 2 threes for Western Kentucky in the second half, and it looks like Frampton will not be on the floor for the Hilltoppers. So here we go. 10 seconds left. Hollingsworth lays it in off the glass, rebounded by Pemberton, and now the Hilltoppers have to foul. They decided to go for the quick layup, was just too strong going in. And there you see.
Yeah, if we could see one more angle on this, because Gary, this is exactly what I was talking about. Watch how everybody goes towards the ball. You know, if he would have flipped it back to Bassey out for 3, I know that's probably not what Rick Stansberry planned to go in this game with Charles Bassey shooting a game-tying 3, but he's already made 2, and everybody went towards the ball in that play. And that's something that as a point guard, I would have been thinking, all right, if everyone's going towards me, watch this. He just throw it back to Bassey. I mean, he you know, or he could have dropped it off. That's all I would have been telling him is like, hey, everyone's coming to me when I drive. Step out, big fella.
In fairness, he did get to the rim. He just missed the layup at the end, though. He got there.
First free throw is good by Ledoux, so it makes it a 2-possession game. He will hit both. And 1 timeout remaining for the Hilltoppers. They won't use it. Half-court shot, won't hit the rim, and Louisiana Tech up by as much as 20 in the first half. Hang on with a 5-point victory over Western Kentucky, and they split the weekend set here in Bowling Green.
Really impressive win because the wheels were sort of kind of falling off. You blew a 20-point lead. It's second half of a back-to-back. You see the excitement. You see the emotion there. And if you're Louisiana Tech, you're sitting at 2-2 in conference. Easily could be 4-0. but you come up to EA Diddle Arena, fans or no fans, it's a tough place to play, and you get a win. Very impressive, Danny.
Well, we are now joined by Eric Conkle for Louisiana Tech. Coach, you led by as much as 20.5. Things almost slipped away from your team. What was the message during the second half?
Well, we just got to keep hanging on. We knew that they're a really good team. They're special in this building, and we knew that we were going to get a run, and we just needed to sustain what we were trying to do. We had a section there in the second half. We couldn't get any stops, and when you don't get stops, it's really hard to play offense when you're going against a set defense. But I give a lot of credit to our guys. They believed, they stuck together, and came away with a great win.
How challenging was that for you down the stretch, because Western Kentucky was changing defenses, and there they even threw a 2-3 zone at you. When you get in the huddle, were you telling the guys, depending on what they did, this is what we're going to run?
Absolutely, and that's something that you have to do when you're preparing for Western Kentucky. You know, they could go 1-3-1, 1-2-2 in the three-quarter court, 2-3 zone. They keep switching it up, and they'll even do some switching in their man-to-man. So we really simplified our playbook. We just really tried to make good plays. We did turn it over there in the second half that we've got to correct, but, you know, it doesn't have to be pretty, and we were able to come away with it.
Well, Coach, thank you and best of luck moving forward here this season in Conference USA play.
Thank you, guys. Have a great one.
Well, another weekend split here in Conference USA play between Louisiana Tech and Western Kentucky. Tim, you got to expect you're going to see that a lot here as this season rolls along.
Well, the parity across college basketball is clearly evident in Conference USA, where anybody can beat anybody at any given night. Rick Stansberry's squad made threes in the second half. They cut a 20-point deficit to a 1-point game. They could not get over the hump. But, Gary, if they make some outside shots, they're still the class to me in Conference USA. But I got to be honest, it's a really, really big if.
Yeah, they just needed Luke Frampton to make some shots while he was on the court. I thought he should have probably been on the court on that final possession, but he was 1 of 7 from three-point range in this game against Louisiana Tech, so wasn't making shots in this one. For them to maximize what they are trying to be with a pro like Charles Bassey in the middle, they need shooters to make things easier for him, and Luke Frampton's got to be one of those guys. Big picture, it's another tough loss for Western Kentucky. That's 2 now in the league, quad 3 losses. They do have some nice wins, but only one quad 1 win right now. The computer numbers are working against them if the goal is to get an at-large bid to the NCAA tournament.
Well, for Louisiana Tech, in the word of Big Sean, last night took an L, but tonight they bounced back. So we'll see how things go moving forward. For Tim Doyle, Gary Parrish, and our entire crew, I'm Danny Wall. Check out our next Conference USA game on Facebook Watch as Western Kentucky takes on Marshall on January 17th. This has been a presentation of CBS Sports Network on Facebook Watch.